Hey everyone, my name is Chris Lambert. On this channel, we talk Kanye West, and today we're gonna have a little bit of a complex discussion, which I'm glad I'm having it on here rather than on Twitter because it's hard to have those on Twitter. But it's regarding Kanye and politics, our favorite topic, and the, I guess, problematic or convoluted narrative that is currently unfolding, and you can see the dynamic of it expressed in the duality between Abramson's tweet versus Joy Reid's tweets. And I need to preface this by saying that on his natural political party, this is from the Forbes interview that Kanye did, you can see he said, "I would run as a Republican if Trump wasn't there. I will run as an independent if Trump is there." Because Trump is the nominee for the Republican Party, of course, Kanye's running as an independent, but know that his alignment at this point is more Republican. So look at this and the headlines that each of these have. Seth Abramson, major breaking news. Kanye West presidential bid revealed as a highly coordinated Republican operation to suppress black vote for Biden. Versus Joy Reid, always pay attention to the story behind the story. Republican operatives are using Kanye West as part of the Trump re-election strategy. They don't care about him or his mental health. They care about diverting black voters and creating a new Jill Stein. You may remember Jill Stein from 2016 was a Green Party candidate that started getting a lot of media attention and a lot of push, and it seemed like she had more connections than she should to the right, at least for a lot of people in the media, and that she might have been being pushed a little farther than she would because she was deemed a spoiler candidate that could draw a necessary number of votes. There's an example in one of these articles that talks about the similar thing happening with Ralph Nader back in 2000, where he was pushed in a way that made him environmentally strong in Florida against Al Gore, who was pushed as environmentally weak, which is just kind of amazing to think about Al Gore being pushed as environmentally weak since he's so associated with climate change at this point. But Nader ended up getting 97,000 votes in Florida, and Gore lost by 537, something like that. So there's now a big fear that that pattern will repeat in each election, that there's always a candidate that's going to be pushed against Democrats as a means of diverting any number of votes, which is one of the background reasons why this narrative has gained so much traction in a way that seems maybe very absurd to a lot of people, especially a lot of Kanye fans, outside of just the political knowledge or political history aspects of it. So keep that in mind. But the big difference between these two points of view is that you have Abramson saying Kanye West presidential bid revealed as a highly coordinated Republican operation, which encompasses the whole thing. Like, Kanye this entire time has been working with the Republicans in this operation, and it's highly coordinated. Versus Joy, who's saying that Kanye is being used by Republican operatives as part of the Trump re-election strategy as the spoiler candidate. Two very different, because the one paints everything that Kanye has done as part of this vast, highly coordinated conspiracy, where Joy's saying that Kanye was doing his own thing, and now these operatives are seeing it and seizing on it. And the first one is very absurd to me. The second one, I think, is a fairer argument. I'm not saying it's a good argument, the right argument, a correct argument. I know a lot of people that watch a channel have different political views than me personally, and I can respect that. And I'm just more concerned with laying out the information about each one and why it's at least more fair of Joy to suspect this, and it's more ridiculous of Seth to state this, right? So let's get into some of the information here. Remember Kanye saying he would run as a Republican. The story kind of started August 3rd, a couple days ago. You had this New York Magazine article come out. Two people linked to Kanye West campaign are active in GOP politics, which one of them is Chuck Wilton, who's a delegate to the Republican National Convention in Charlotte. He's one of 3 electors West's presidential campaign named in a filing submitted with the Vermont Secretary of State on Monday. He was also elected by the Vermont Republican Party in May to serve as a delegate for President Trump at this year's RNC, which means that it seems like Chuck is in favor of Trump, which is important here. Asked by the Intelligencer if he was the same person who is listed as a delegate, Wilton replied, "Yep, that would be me." He said that he had been involved in politics in Vermont for 4 years and had been connected to the West campaign through political contacts. Somebody said that Vermont needs electors for certain people, and it was something I said I'm more than willing to do. He described himself politically as conservative, libertarian, center-right, adding that he was not disappointed with Trump, but wanted to search out some more alternatives to him. Wilton said that he thought West was center-right, just like him. Wilton was the second person with ties to the GOP to be linked to the West presidential campaign. A prominent Republican operative, Greg Keller, was listed as the campaign's point of contact in a filing with the Arkansas Secretary of State. Keller, who did not respond to repeated requests for comment, is the former executive director of the American Conservative Union and has worked for a number of prominent Republican politicians, including Mitt Romney and Josh Hawley. So this is kind of a key difference, and one that makes the whole thing seem ridiculous and one that makes it seem like it has some legs. Anyone that is running for president has to hire people that have experience on presidential campaigns. That makes sense, right? It's unavoidable. And those people are likely, if they're at the top of the game, to have worked with either Democrats or Republicans. There's not a lot of flip-flopping on that. You have your beliefs, you support those candidates, and you stay within your lane in that case. So would it make sense for Kanye to fill his staff with former Democratic campaign people, because Kanye doesn't identify as a Democrat and is actively upset with the Democratic Party? It makes more sense, as Kanye identifies as a Republican now, for him to hire people and work with people on his campaign that have Republican backgrounds. And when you're at Kanye's level, with the clout that he has, the money that he has, you're going to be hiring people that aren't fresh out of college, but that have a decent resume, and you can afford to do that. So it makes sense that Kanye would work with somebody like a Greg Keller that has had a lot of experience. The thing that makes it more tricky, though, is that these electors don't have, you don't hire them, right? You just convince them to get their vote. I'm sure you probably can pay them, but it's probably illegal. So the fact that you have electors that have been in favor of Trump or longtime Republicans that are now supporting Kanye out of nowhere. Again, Kanye does identify as a Republican, but without that background, without really a formal political party, and with Trump as the incumbent, and with a good chance to win if the conservative machine backs him as they did the first time around, it makes you wonder why somebody like Chuck would go switching to Kanye. And maybe it doesn't matter that much. I think that's the other thing to consider, how often these electors just throw their vote towards somebody. I don't know enough about that to really comment on it. But then it comes up again in this Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel article. And this is one of the other key points that kind of came up. After the third, one of the other things that people started talking about is that this woman, Lane Rulland, in Wisconsin, was the one that dropped off petitions at the, courthouse or election office for Kanye. So for Kanye to make it onto the ballot, he had to have a number of petitions. And this woman, who was the former general counsel for the state GOP, is the one jumping off these ballots. So in the wake of 2 people linked to Kanye West campaign or active in GOP politics, and then having a third person that was linked to GOP politics now dropping off these ballots for Kanye, alarms started going off for people. But again, Lane is a election attorney. That's the thing. She's somebody that you hire to help you with elections. And just the fact that she was the general counsel, she's at that level, it seems like somebody Kanye would hire, right? There's no loyalty when it comes to an attorney in this way that's just helping a candidate get on the ballot. Just because she's worked with Trump or worked with other candidates doesn't mean she can't do the work for Kanye in this case, right? She's not representing him in a trial. She's not doing anything like that. She's just helping him get on the ballots. And so somebody making a big deal like Cameron Joseph of Vice, that like, oh, this lawyer that's worked with the GOP is helping Kanye. See, it's a scam. It makes no sense. Like, that can't be the thing that you criticize him for here, or that is the smoking gun of this operation, because it's just somebody that, of course, Kanye would hire to help him in Wisconsin, one of the top election lawyers in the state. And you see that this woman, who is a spokeswoman for the GOP, so if this was a big conspiracy, of course she would say this, but it makes sense. To me, who is not on the right, this makes sense. It appears that Kanye West made a smart decision by hiring an experienced election attorney. Yeah, that's why Lane was dropping off those ballots. So this article at the beginning seems ridiculous and makes that Seth point seem very absurd, right? Because of course Kanye is going to hire somebody that's on the right to help him with his election. But this is where it gets a little weirder. So there are 10 electors that the West campaign had to round up to make it on the ballot here, which, like in Vermont, Kanye needed the 3, and that's where that other guy came in. The electors have to pledge to vote for West in the Electoral College if he were to win the state. Independent candidates have to submit an elector for each of the state's 8 congressional districts, as well as 2 at-large electors. The Electoral College. But see, this is the thing that I'm not sure about, and maybe should have looked up, but the electors have to pledge to vote for West if he were to win the state. But that doesn't mean they can't pledge to vote for anybody else, right? So if that's the case, it wouldn't even be that big of a deal if somebody's just like, yeah, like, I'll say I'll vote for you if you win. Of course. It seems almost like a courtesy at that point, right? Rather than something that's like, I don't know. If it's only one or the other, like, you can only pledge to vote for Trump or only pledge to vote for Biden or only pledge to vote for Kanye. Now it suddenly seems like a bigger deal if they're only picking Kanye but had these ties. But if you can do multiple and just have to say, yeah, I'd vote for him too, it's suddenly way less nefarious. But you can see here one of the reasons why this has set off alarm bells. West elector for the 3rd Congressional District is James Smith of Stoddard. That Smith has the same phone number and a previous address as James D. Smith, a 34-year-old former member of the La Crosse Republican Party, who ran as a fake Democrat against now Senator Jennifer Schilling during the 2011 recall elections. In that election, state Republicans put up fake Democrats to force primaries against Democratic candidates who were trying to unseat incumbent GOP senators. All the fake candidates, including Smith, lost. And this is, if you're kind of like, well, he could have been Republican, come back to Democrat, yada, yada. On his Facebook page, which has since been taken down, Smith has a picture of his house with a Trump sign in front of it. Contacted by the Journal Sentinel, Smith was tight-lipped about his support for West. I have no comment at this time. So again, if this guy can only vote for one, and it's between Trump and Kanye, and he has a Trump sign in his yard and has been a lifelong Republican, it would be strange for him to suddenly go towards West. Not that Kanye isn't an alluring candidate or viable candidates, or that somebody might not like his policies more than Trump. There's plenty of argument for that. It's just when you're looking at the simple dynamics of it, it would seem strange for him to make that choice, and that this guy already has a background of running as a fake Democrat, which I remember hearing about that as a thing. Is that just a media thing that was spit out in previous elections? Possibly. But I know I'd heard about it before. But why would that guy, if he has that history of it, could he be up to something nefarious now? In this case, his reputation would precede him and cast doubt on it. So this is kind of the thing that has been causing people some concern, because it would seem like there are these electors in all of these states that have been diehard supporters of the Republican Party and of Trump that are now saying that they would vote for Kanye. And again, if you can do multiple people, not a big deal. But if you can only vote for one or the other, it suddenly seems a bit more nefarious, and would get to Joy's point that Republican operatives are using Kanye West as part of the Trump re-election strategy, right? Rather than Seth's point, which just blows the whole thing out of proportion. Silly Seth. This article, it's a little strong in its wording. but it kind of gets at sort of the dynamic that I've been talking about. And by John Avlon, Kanye West's bizarre campaign is designed to help Trump, which that title already is upsetting to me because I don't think the campaign is designed to help Trump. But you can make the argument that people outside have started to use Kanye's campaign to help Trump. I think that's a much more fair thing to say than just attributing it to Kanye is part of this and knows exactly what he's doing and is working in Trump's favor. Like, could that be the case? Sure. But is that the case from what I feel we've seen? No, not at all. But here, the article is a little better in terms of things. Like, at first, it talks about the mental health and that the situation seems closer to a regrettable public breakdown than a presidential run, which you can have some ills about how the mental health aspect is being talked about and framed. But there are a handful of Trump-orbiting GOP operatives pushing West's helter-skelter, supposedly independent campaign for president. According to CNN, one such operative with ties to the Trump campaign, Lane Rutland, has filed paperwork to get West on the ballot in Wisconsin. Again, Lane is someone you hire, so this is the point where you're just like, yeah, now you're fucking with the description of things because Kanye can just hire her, anybody could hire her, and she would do what she did for Kanye, I'm assuming, or decide to reject it. But if it's Kanye West asking you and willing to pay the money, that's some easy money for her. But West and his team are working to get on the ballot in several states, including Arkansas, Illinois, and Missouri. And I'm sure he's hired people just like Lane to do the same exact job that Lane did in those states. And they point out West cannot win the election. He's missed too many deadlines to get on the ballot in too many states, but he could be a spoiler for Donald Trump's reelection by siphoning off key portions of the black vote in select states like Wisconsin and Ohio with filing deadlines this week. One of the issues, I think, with this conversation is that is the only point I have seen people make. They don't even explore the fact that Kanye has positioned himself as a religious conservative and that would appeal more to people that are already in support of Trump than it would to people that were going to vote Democrats. That now you're getting into what many have called a racist statement that just because Kanye is black, it would convince other black people, no matter what their beliefs, but just because he is a black man, to then vote for Kanye, which is a very problematic thing to state. But nobody's bringing up any other results that Kanye running for president could have or any other potential scenarios. And then it says here, the artist who once declared that former President George W. Bush doesn't care about black people appears to be being played by conservative operatives. So now it goes from backing Seth's perspective on it to being more of Joy's perspective on it. That Kanye is now being maneuvered by these people or supported by these people. And he starts to get into a little bit of the history of, I guess, Republican politics. And I don't mean that as offensive to any of you that are right-leaning. But just this is the point that he tries to make, that there's a history of operations that are designed to have third-party candidates try to take votes away from Democrats, which, is there anything inherently wrong with that? People are going to have different perspectives on it, like all's fair in love and war, or you're just doing what you have to do to win, or if people aren't convinced about the candidate enough to vote for that candidate and can be swayed by a third party, then that's what's on them, et cetera, et cetera. Or you can say, like, yeah, that's underhanded. Like, people are going to have different views on it, but it happens. Like, politics is a intense world where people get power and they get money. So of course they're going to try to do things to get that power and get that money. And you can see here, this is kind of the main comments I wanted to focus on. Whether West is on board or not, that's what's at work here, plain and simple. Just this idea that he may not be involved, but he's being used. I can't say either way, but I could see why it would be an argument that people are making, much more than Kanye, like Seth said, is just an operative that everybody is like knows it and he has been working with them. Yeah. So there's all of that. And this kind of goes through the whole thing that we had already been talking about and shows the background. What Ralph Nader famously won more than 97,000 votes in Florida when Al Gore lost by only 537 votes. So yeah, he goes a little strong then on exactly what this is rather than just continuing to speculate and lay out the information. So I don't know. The conversation is going to continue to be complicated because politics is very complicated and people's emotions when it comes to politics are very complicated. It's not just, do I like Yeezus or not? Do I like Life of Pablo? Can we agree that Kanye West has the best discography? Which, we can all kind of fall back on the point that it's all subjective. We all have our points of view, and we can do that with politics too. Like, I can respect any of you all having different views than I have on that matter. But people start to have different feelings when it's people in power doing things that then affect our day-to-day lives. They start to get more critical of that. They start to have less leeway of, that's just your opinion and I respect you for having your opinion, rather than you're taking an action that directly affects me and I am pissed off at you for it, regardless of party, right? If you're on the right, you might think that the left's doing that and it upsets you. If you're on the left, you might think that the right's doing that and it upsets you. So the fact that now Kanye not only said that he was running for president, but now is being swept up into the conversation of, is he being used by operatives or is he an operative, and the association with that party and just how the media is going to play this out. It is going to be, I think, pretty ugly in terms of the discussion around Kanye. And if the conversation in the best of times wasn't nuanced and wasn't thoughtful, you can absolutely imagine how unnuanced and how unthoughtful the conversation is going to get, since it's now involving politics and all the manipulations and all the positioning that people do when it comes to political discussions, because they want to make their point. They want to get things out there that support their point of view, that demonize the other, it's bleak territory. And we as Kanye fans are now going to have to either navigate this conversation, be part of this conversation, step away from this conversation, decide that we just want to focus on the music, decide that we want to go all in, that we're supporting everything, that we have lines in the sand. In some ways, when you step back from it and just look at the philosophy of this, it's going to be really thought-provoking in just what and how each of us react to what this means and how we want to engage with it. And to me, who's very reflective and philosophical on these things, I find that pretty interesting. But on the other hand, as somebody that just gets exhausted by these things and is in the middle of a lot of these conversations, I'm on the one hand really looking forward to being able to have these conversations with y'all and hopefully help each of us process how we're feeling on it. Not each of us, but just help people have a sounding board for how they're feeling, how they want to engage with it, maybe have some reflection on that and what that means for you. But I definitely understand either way that you're feeling on this, that you don't want to be part of this political end of things and just want to keep it to the music, or that you're so into the political things and that this is one of the most important times and conversations we can be having, and how you feel either way about this. I'm curious. I hope you can be respectful of each other, because I know there's going to be differences, but at the same time, we're just basic individuals out there, right? And we're all going to have our opinions shaped by the experiences that we've had, the information that we've had. And I would hope that instead of screaming at each other, demonizing each other, if you do get in these conversations with other Kanye fans, that you can respect somewhat that they're probably just trying to be happy too. I think this is what's best for not just themselves, but people, and not coming out of a place of just outright hatred. And that the individuals that you're interacting with that are other Kanye fans are very different from the people that are actually in power and taking actions that affect your day-to-day life. Be pissed at those people all you want, criticize those people all you want, scream at them, but I guess at least have a little bit more empathy for your fellow Kanye fan that might just have different political leanings than you, but might still hopefully respect you as a person, and that you two can disagree on those things, but still ultimately respect each other as individuals. So I don't know, high horse, I guess I'm on here, but I do think that this is going to be a whirlwind of a period, and we'll see how it goes. But if you have thoughts, questions, concerns, I'm interested in hearing where you stand on everything. And if you have any more nuance to add to this or thoughts to add to this, I very much would love to hear what you say. Again, I hope you can be respectful of other people having different opinions on it if you see those comments. But if you want to support the channel, the easiest way is liking, subscribing, and commenting, as all three of those things tell YouTube that this is a channel people enjoy, and then they show it to more people, which helps us out financially. And then the thing that we're most well known for is our line-by-line lyrical analysis of Kanye's discography. College Dropouts, all the way up to Jesus is King, just missing Watch the Throne and Cruel Summer. We'll get to them eventually, but we've gone through every song, exploring the themes and narrative and analyzing it in a way that will change how you listen to Kanye's discography. So if you really love Kanye and want to have a new appreciation for some of your favorite songs and favorite albums, I recommend our podcast. You might not agree with everything, but you'll appreciate, I think. And that's just $5 a month. You can go to patreon.com/Kanye podcast, and the support means a lot. And then I also have a budding literary career. I've released 2 books. Killer Unconquered is the recent one. Both are kind of in a series. It's Killer and Victim and then Killer Unconquered. If you just want to support me as a literary author, which I would very much appreciate, there's a link down in the description for both books. And I hope you enjoy them. They're weird, literary fiction, but I think they're good. Until next time, my name's Chris. Stay wavy and keep it loopy. Cheers.